Hello and welcome to Casual Krakoa. Hey everybody, I'm Dave Busing, founder and editor-in-chief of comicbookherald.com. Today we're going to talk about the 8 million new X-Men comics that came out today, as well possibly as some Eternals, maybe some other Marvel news stuff going on in the comics book sphere. Whatever questions you guys want to talk about, get them in the chat, and I will address as many of them as possible. I'm seeing already that some bets are being placed on how many drinks of water I'm going to take during this conversation. At whatever the number is set at, whatever the line is set at, take the over. Okay, take the over. Talking for 5 minutes is a lot for me. Talking for an hour plus nonstop by myself about X-Men comics, I am drained. I practically pass out after this. Except that's not an option when you have little kids. Little spoiler alert there for those of you without children. But no, today we're going to talk about X-Men comics. We're going to talk about all the fun stuff that came out today. We had X-Men Red number 2. We had Immortal X-Men number 2. We had New Mutants number 25. Welcome back, New Mutants. There was also technically an X-Force and Wolverine issue today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about those. Don't have a lot to say, but definitely getting questions if they are pertinent or interesting. Again, chat is open. I'm going to be checking questions as I go. Super chat is open and available. If you can and are interested in supporting Comic Book Herald endeavors and want to do a super chat, super appreciated. Thank you so much. And I will prioritize those questions. Okay. Otherwise, I will get to them as I see them and as we are interested. Stay hydrated. That's right. I'm seeing that in the chat. And it's just, listen, it's just good advice. Listen, I slug several of these Hulk-sized Nalgene's every day. Every day. Big water guy over here. Man, do I love water. Listen, okay, Big Water got to me. they've been emailing, they've been trying to get on the stream. The stream's picking up. We get a lot of new viewers every week, right? People are interested in the Comic Book Herald channel. Like, listen, I'm a hot commodity, right? You have a thriving comics media empire here. Big Water's after me. They're trying to get these ads. I got to do this stuff, right? I got to get these drinks going. So, all right, keep tabs on how many drinks we have today. Otherwise, we're going to be talking X-Men comics. And I think I'm going to start today. I'm going to start with my favorite X-Men comic of the day. Not my favorite comic of the day, mind you. That was Eternals number 12, which never in a zillion years would I have believed that on a day with 8 zillion X-Men comics during the Krakoa era, which I am very invested in, that Eternals would remain my favorite series time and time again. But Kieran Gillan, Esad Ribic, the whole team, they're doing it. This was the final chapter in the Hail Thanos arc. This is going to build and set the stage for Judgment Day. I've said it before, and I will say it again here. Judgment Day is going to be pretty good. It's going to be a decent event. Pay attention to what's going to happen there. I know, event fatigue, it's real. I get it. I understand it. I'm in it. Listen, I'm in it more than you are, okay? I'm putting together the reading orders for events on comicbookherald.com with every tie-in in chronological order. I'm trying to dictate when and tie-ins are relevant or are not relevant. I'm in it. I get it, right? And I get that fatigue as well. I think Judgment Day is going to be pretty good. The other thing it's going to be is Judgment Day is going to be real big. Judgment Day is going to be big, okay? And this makes me nervous. I think in recent years, comics publishers have started to get a feel for the fact that events should be a little bit tighter. They should be a little less sprawling. They should be less annoying, basically. Don't make people pick up 50 tie-ins for Dark Reign, right? And that series didn't do that. It has very specifically designated Dark Reign, tie-ins, right? It doesn't interrupt too many books, with some exceptions, right? Like with Spider-Woman, Moon Knight had an idea for it, this and that, right? Judgment Day is going to do it. It's going to do the whole tie-in thing. It's tying into Amazing Spider-Man we've seen, because Ed Wells has X-Office ties. It's tying into, obviously, all the Gillan written stuff, Immortal X, all the X books, right, are, of course, going to cross over with this in ways that make sense. Like, it's giving me a little pause because the broader the reach, the more tie-ins, just the harder it is to pull off, like, a great feeling event. When I think about my favorite events of all time, it can go either way. Like Dark Knight's Metal, on the DC side, one of my favorites, the Snyder and Capullo, the first one, not Death Metal, okay, the first Metal, very good, very tight, very targeted, specific tie-ins to build out what they're doing there with that story. But then you can go the other way with 2015 Secret Wars, massive. And the tie-ins aren't really tie-ins as part of the story so much as just different visions into Battleworld and different attempts at stories and just kind of letting creators run free. And that I had a blast with that one too, right? So it can work. But then if you look at the more famous examples throughout the 2000s, Civil War, Dark Reign, um, Secret Invasion. It's the thing where you're going to get a super mixed bag. You're going to get a super mixed bag when you have hundreds of comics all tying in to tell a certain story. Generally, it's just going to be driven by creative unit and by whatever's going on with that team at that time on that book, right? But it's not all going to work, right? So you're really just going for a high batting average when you have that many books involved. You're not going for like a genuinely good experience across all of them. You're going to have some duds. So anyway, I'm not too worried about it yet, but it is growing. It is expanding. And that makes me a little nervous. But the Amazing Spider-Man piece of it, and we talked about this last week, the Amazing Spider-Man piece of it with Zeb Wells being involved, we saw in the Free Comic Book Day issue that, okay, Madeline Pryor's playing a role here. We got some stuff with the Goblin Queen and Ben Reilly. That crossover I'm interested in now, right? I think that's a good fit. And I said this last week, but it's like, if Spider-Man's not going to get sort of that wholly unique Hox Pox refresh for the character and for the Spidey mythos themselves, then if you can't beat him, join him. Come on into the experts, right? Let's figure out how we get Spider-Man involved with the broader Krakoa implications of the Marvel Universe, okay? I'm seeing a couple super chats come in here. We got one for the Hulk Jug. Thanks so much there. And one just saying we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And today should be fun. Should be fun to go through because we got a lot of X-Men to talk about, all right? Okay, so X-Men Red number 2. Writer Al Ewing. Art by Stefano Caselli. Colors by Federico Blee. Colors by Corey Pettit. All right. This was my favorite X book of the day. It was. And it was my favorite, I think, for all the same reasons that I thought the first issue was quite good, which is Ewing is a master of spinning plates. There's a lot of character work going on here. There's a lot of individuals involved, and it continues to be just the general premise here, right? X-Men Red is about the most fertile, most interesting territory in this Krakoa era, which is all the mutants on Mars, right? The mutants have taken over Mars. It's now planet Arakko. It's the capital of the Sol System. That's the most interesting thing in this X-Men era right now, because it is the newest and it has been explored and fleshed out the least. Ewing's the right person to do it. And right off the bat, you can see, honestly, like the thing that Al Ewing does better and throughout his Marvel career has done better than literally anyone, okay? And that is the mastery of weaving continuity into a story. Here we have mastery of a retcon with Vulcan's continuity flubs. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about Vulcan, the third Summers brothers, the one who has been uncharacteristically funny and very drunk throughout basically the entire Hickman run on X-Men. He is always partying at the summer house with Petra and Sway, who are two characters that also were part of his secret original X-Men team from Deadly Genesis, written by Ed Brubaker. They were killed on this secret first mission to Krakoa, if you've read Deadly Genesis. But the implication in the Hickman X-Men run was like, hey, we have resurrection protocols on Krakoa. They're back. But then the twist that Hickman was going to get to, and which we see delivered here in a different fashion in X-Men Red number 2. And hey, heads up, spoiler alert. Okay, I'm going to talk about all these comics as if you've read them, or as if you don't care to hear the details, or if you don't mind. Okay, so spoiler alert for what happened in these comics. The twist that Hickman was setting up, and he revealed this on his interview with J. Miles Explain the X-Men, was that it was going to be like Petra and Sway were all in his head. Okay, he was sixth sensing us. They were not really there. They had not actually been reconstituted through resurrection protocols, perhaps because maybe they were killed prior to Cerebro making a backup, right? And it only became possible now with what they're calling, I think they're calling it the waiting room, which is what Wanda gave them, what the Scarlet Witch gave them at the end of Trial of Magneto, which is basically like, you can resurrect anybody. It doesn't matter when they were backed up, et cetera, right? But that was the twist. It was going to be like, they're not real, except there was a script error that Hickman put in there that had Havoc reference them as if he could see them. And then that kind of undid the whole bit, because if you have another character talking about them, you can't then reveal they weren't there later. Okay? Al Ewing looks at all that, says, oh, yeah, never mind that misstep, never mind that editorial oversight. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to fix it anyway. Puts in a data page about how everyone's kind of known this and they've been kind of teasing. Like, yeah, we even pretended, with the holographic Petra and Sway that they were out there to try to help Vulcan through this, clear like mental health crisis he's going through. Like, he makes it all work. It's so cool. It's so fun. Incredibly smart stuff. Just to make the bit of Petra and Sway not being real still work. And what that does, what that indicates is Vulcan's not put together especially well right now. And we've seen this teased in the previous X-Men run as well. I think it's one of the most interesting, yet sadly dropped, or prior to this point dropped, threads of the Hickman line. Hickman spent several issues on the saga of Vulcan and on the fact that he was seemingly dead at the end of War of Kings, that he actually never died because these external aliens, I shouldn't say external because that's an actual Marvel thing, these alien creatures, maybe from the Cancerverse, maybe from somewhere else, I don't think we have confirmation on any of that, they found his body and they repurposed him and they've sent him all these weird messages and they're like, we're gonna, you're gonna seem like you're normal, but really the real you is gonna be hiding underneath. The real him, the real Vulcan, the real Gabriel Summers still is Emperor Vulcan. He's a monster. He's the worst, okay? If you haven't read the Emperor Vulcan era, which is late 2000s X-Men stuff, you have the Ed Brubaker written Uncanny X-Men. It's a story arc called The Rise and the Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. That sets the stage for literally an Emperor Vulcan mini. Then, like I said, the War of Kings stuff. If you're doing the Marvel Cosmic joint from the late 2000s, and there's a great reading order on Comic Herald. If you just Google Cosmic, Marvel Cosmic reading order, you'll find it. You go Annihilation to Annihilation Conquest to War of Kings to Realm of Kings. You get some good Vulcan stuff in there, okay? And you get a lot of good comics. Love that Marvel Cosmic era. But that's the real Vulcan. He's a monster. He's horrible. He's like the worst of Roman emperors, but brought into space, into Shi'ar territory. That character's been hidden, and that's been fun. That's been fun to have goofy, broy, drunk Vulcan, but we are seeing now Emperor Vulcan is returning. And the way that they're doing that, the way that they're making that work is really fun. It's really smart. And it's honestly, it's time. Like, it is time to see what's the deal with these aliens that grabbed Vulcan. What's the deal with his hidden personality now coming to the surface? And we see that here. Like, he is full of rage. He is seeing people that don't exist. He is getting wrecked by Storm, which was wonderful. Great. Listen, I don't think it's going to come as a surprise to any Al Ewing fans out there, of which there are many. But this is going to be a good run for Storm, okay? This is going to be great. She gets some pretty incredible moments in the first and second issue here. I'm really digging her showing up with what she's calling the Brotherhood of Araco to counter Abigail Brand's led version of X-Men Red. And Storm, the Omega level mutant with training, with experience, wrecks another Omega level mutant, Vulcan. I gotta say, like, I think people get caught up in the who would win stuff in comics a lot of times. We got two Omega level mutants, really their power sets, like one of them should not just fall out of the battle so easily. I gotta say, I never really care about that stuff. I care more about, well, what does it actually tell us about the storytelling? What does it actually tell us about the narrative we're trying to weave here? And in this instance, it's clear we're trying to weave the narrative that Storm is way more in control and knows how to play this game than Vulcan, who is out of control. He has no purpose. He has no direction. He is out of control, right? And I think on that level, it works incredibly well until, Abigail Brand is getting her fingers. She's getting her tendrils into Vulcan, and she is going to direct him. She is going to point him as a weapon as part of her schemes, which are varied and sinister, and we still don't really know what they are. Abby is playing every side right now, right? She is playing Krakoa, she is playing Orcus, but she is not aligned with either of them. And I think Ewing needs to deliver a bit of a punch with Brand, either in somewhere in this first arc, somewhere in what would ultimately become like the first collected volume. I want to see the delivery of what is Brand actually planning. I think if we drag this out too long, it's going to get annoying. Okay? I don't think we can slow play this too long. I want to see what is Brand actually trying to get to. because she's one of the most important characters in this whole thing, right? Abigail Brand is the only character, to my knowledge, who is playing both Krakoa and Orcus. She's the only character who's doing that. She's incredibly interesting, incredibly important. Even just her aims on Mars. Her goal originally was like she wants Arakko off Mars. She wants it for her own purposes. She wants these mutants chased back to Amenth, the dimension where Apocalypse still is and his little family after Ten of Swords, right? We see that here in one of the data pages. That's what she actually wants. What she did not count on is how flippin' cool Storm is. Like, that's basically it. Like, basically the impediment to her plans is Storm rules. And that's blocking her from getting what she wants. And that's interesting, right? That's development. But again, I don't at least know what is that thing that she actually wants yet. So I do want to see more on that. And it's interesting here too, like we're already seeing builds. We see Manifold, a character that Ewing wrote quite well in Sword, seeing through Abby Brand's ruses right away, right? She's like, hey, join my X-Men Red. And he's like, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of that. I can see, all this stuff is happening too conveniently. These problems outlining you mysteriously throwing Henry Gyrick out of an airlock, or then denying it and all this stuff. And Manifold has a very funny line, which is basically like, I don't know, I'll just go hang out with the Avengers or something, which is a callback to during the Hickman era, he was on the Avengers. So I do like the idea of the Avengers being the X-Men's fallback school, right? Like if you're a mutant and you're kind of like, you're not feeling what's going on in Krakoa, you're like, I guess I'll go avenge or something. Like I'll step back for a minute, consider what I really want to do while I avenge. That does work pretty well. But yeah, so you got the X-Men Red, the X-Men of Mars that Brand is setting up. You're going to have Mentalo, Frenzy, Random, and Cable. Not totally clear on WizKid's involvement after Sword. And maybe he's a part of this, maybe he's not. But that's the X-Men Red team. So you're going to have them kind of at odds with the Brotherhood of Arakko, who, the Storm-led team is actually trying to connect to and understand the people of Arakko, right? And that's where I think this book can really thrive, is we have all these new mutants, and they are living on Mars, and they come from this warring culture. And X-Men Red, the idea that Brand is positing is basically just like a police watch force. And we see the questions asked here, like, why do we even think we need that? Are the Arakko people aren't asking for this? Like, why do we think they need that? Storm's trying to go about it differently. And she said now in both issues, no kings, right? No kings, no queens. On Arakko, they're not going to be ruled that way. So that stuff is interesting. And I think there's some meta commentary that, on a political nature that is interesting as well. There's one big thing here. There's a few big things, actually. Okay, so before we get to the progenitors, which I have a bit to talk about, so we got Max the Fisherman. He shows up. He's just like a cool guy who likes to fish. He's in the first issue, kind of befriends Magneto. He shows up here with that team. We see a reference here. So like the people of Arakko, this like artist community that they go and rescue, they know him, right? They're familiar with him. And there's a reference to him being like, it's not the Midnight King, because that means other stuff, right? Midnight King is like what Hickman calls Black Bolt, but like he's like the ruler at midnight or some sort of language like that. It made me wonder, isn't there a Midnight Council on Arakko, right? So we got the Great Ring, the counter to Krakoa's Quiet Council. Isn't there a Midnight wing that we've never seen? We got 3 redacted individuals. What if Max is one of those? What if Max is actually our first member of the Midnight Council, or whatever the actual terminology is? I could be getting that off a little bit. I'm digging that. I'm digging that idea, right? Just seems like he likes to fish, but really he's like insanely influential on Arakko because he's part of this secret ruling body, So that's one theory. I'm throwing that out there now just because they use the language of midnight. And the plan by the end of this, after Storm shows up and just is straight up the coolest, is Abby's going to point Vulcan to try to kill Tarn, the Uncaring, to get onto the Great Ring. So Abigail Brand's like, all right, I need a mole, right? She's like, I need somebody I control on this Great Ring, because right now I have no control. I have no political leverage. To do that, Vulcan needs to oppress the Arakko people. Impress, not oppress, although kind of go hand in hand here. And kill Tarn the Uncaring. That'll do it. Easier said than done, right? We've seen of the Arakko mutants, we've probably seen the most of Tarn the Uncaring this point through Hellions. Dude whips, right? Dude can handle his own. So that's not going to be an easy one for Vulcan, but I am very interested to see how it plays out. I think that'll be cool. All right, we got to talk too. So the threat that X-Men Red and Brotherhood sort of clash on, that is ultimately like a I don't know if this is the right terminology. I think this is what she calls it, like a false flag. But it's like Abby Brand sets this up. Like she sets up a fake situation in order to, manipulate these people. But she brings in the progenitors, okay? Or the progenitors are brought in to cause a disturbance. Now, this was interesting to me in the moment for a few reasons. The first of which is the progenitors are a creation of Al Ewing's, okay, with Javier Rodriguez back on Royals. And Royals was a short-lived Marvel Legacy series, I think circa probably 2017. It ran for only, I don't know, 10 issues or so. It's basically an Inhumans book. It's like a cosmic Inhumans book. It's got Marvel Boy involved. And this is one of the, it's underrated too. It's not Ewing's best stuff, but it is underrated, especially if you like the Ultimates Al Ewing cosmic verse, which I do. Okay, and the progenitors they're just like a race of very hyper intelligent, very hyper influential. I mean, we can call them aliens, but they don't really function like that. They're kind of like mini Celestials. Okay, they're a lot like mini Celestials, and what we learn in Royals is they actually created the Kree, I believe. Okay, and they were kind of trying to set up the Kree as this interesting thing. Then the Kree go and create the Inhumans. And the progenitors were like, actually, the Inhumans are cooler than you, basically. And then they got interested in them, okay? And if you want the whole story, right, you go and read Royals. But why does that matter? Well, the progenitors, that's a term that has come up a fair amount recently. First with Marvel Fresh Start, with Avengers, and now again in the Tease to Judgment Day, because there's some solicits talking about the progenitor being tied to the Celestials. What is that about? Okay, in Jason Aaron and Ed McGuinness's Fresh Start Avengers 2018 series, which I don't love, okay, but in the first 6 issues, the whole basis for superheroics and superheroes on Earth, in Earth 616, is revealed to be, by Loki, no less, the work of a celestial, an alpha celestial, called the progenitor. And to be specific, superheroes exist because the progenitor puked into Earth. Not making that up. That is the real reason. we have superheroes on Earth. Really glad Aaron and co stepped in to make that canon. It feels like a real win all around. Okay, but that when I heard that name, I was like, what is the relationship here? Because we've got Ewing's progenitors in Royals. We have the progenitor, Celestial, who is the one who, again, sort of gave superheroics, gave all these powers on Earth, basically made everything that we read, right? The reason Marvel Comics exist is because of this Celestial's sickness. They're not related as of yet, okay? This is just, I'm going to say, some lazy continuity mining by Aaron, or just a total coincidence, okay? But I don't really believe that. I think it's just kind of lazy continuity mining. Aaron took something that sounded cool from the Ewing Royals run in the cosmic side of things, and I was like, that's a good name, I'm going to use that. But now the actual progenitors are back, because Ewing loves to pull his own stuff back into work, which is cool. I always dig that. And they're not related, and it's weird. It's weird, man. Like, so I am fully expecting somebody, maybe even Ewing himself, to connect the dots here. Maybe it'll be Gillan in Judgment Day, right? Because this is where we're going. Maybe somebody will connect the dots between the progenitor, the Celestial, and these progenitors, because they are not that dissimilar as cosmic entities. They really aren't. They have similar functions. They do similar things. And as far as I know, the progenitors didn't puke up the Kree. Like, I don't think they Ralphed and then the Kree existed. So I'm going to say the progenitors are cooler than the progenitor. I'm just going to put that out there now. I think that's fair. But there is time. There's time to connect these dots, and I'm kind of hoping for it, honestly. The progenitor's role in X-Men Red number 2 is not super important. Basically, they show up in a capacity similar to the Lethal Legion in the Pages of S.W.O.R.D. previously, where it's just like, hey, here's a pull, and it's just a threat, just kind of a space threat that teams can deal with. But that did get me thinking. Okay, that did get me thinking. And boy, are those things similar. So, all right, there's my X-Men Red thoughts. I'm going to get some questions here in a second. Chug of this fine Hulk H2O, this Hulk 2O, for a moment while I read through the chat. Okay. If you want your own Hulk 2O, visit a faucet near you. This has been brought to you by comicbookherald.com. All right, let's talk this question here. We got a super chat. Thanks so much for putting this in the chat. Hey, Dave, do you think Ewing X Office will revisit the dying on Arakko plot thread where mutants died and come back more serious and stronger? I feel like this has so much potential. So I think this one, my understanding of this, and I've gone back and forth on this a few times now, right? I think my understanding of this is that only applies for Amenth. Like there's a distinction between Arakko, which is this sentient island and people, right? This whole civilization now on Mars, okay? But used to be in a totally different dimension. It used to be in a totally different dimension, and that dimension is called Amenth. I think if you die in Amenth, if you're resurrected later in through Krakoan resurrection protocols, first off, there might be issues. Or I guess that's Otherworld. Nope, let's throw that out. Okay, but no, if you die in Amenth and you get resurrected, a la Wild Child, a la Nanny, you come back, yeah, like serious and stronger and like you're hyper efficient and all that stuff, right? I think that's the difference. That's my understanding. So I don't think, because otherwise it would be like, everyone just go and die on Mars because we're all going to come back like hyper focused and our best possible selves. And obviously that's not something that's really been talked about yet. So I think that is the difference. It's a good question though. And it is frankly kind of confusing even to me still. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any other essential questions before I get going here with Immortal X-Men? Can you give us some predictions on the ending of Axe? I say the 5 will fall. I got to give this one more thought. Definitely, I think we are. I mean, basically, we're there, right? Like this was the last Eternals issue before Judgment Day. There is going to be a prologue, setup kind of thing. Maybe I'll do the predictions around that time. But yeah, I mean, I think will the 5 fall? Sure, that would make a lot of sense. I think we could, because we got Hope involved in the Quiet Council, they're kind of fracturing. It seems like a major, major weakness of the X-Men right now. I mean, obviously we've been building through the other X books to Resurrection Protocols getting outed for some time. I could definitely see that being a follow-up to Judgment Day. That's been set up. It would also tie in, I think, in a lot of ways to, could part of the fallout potentially also be Icarus or one of the Eternals revealing how their own resurrection protocols work, which if you've read the first volume, I won't spoil it because I don't think as many people have read Eternals here, but there's a dark secret at the heart of the Eternals' own, and they're not called resurrection protocols, but it's the same thing. There's a dark secret there. Like, what if one of them, what if Icarus, for example, is finally just like, I can't take it anymore. This is breaking me up. We're going to put that out into the world. We're going to let people know about that. Simultaneously, X-Men, Krakoan resurrection protocols get out there. Like that bombshell news, quote unquote, which is obviously like there's not a lot of dramatic irony in there for us because we've known that since House of X number 5 or whatever it is. I could see that information being put out there as opposed, like here's the thing, okay? The Eternals are going to be correcting excess deviation. I mean, after the end of Eternals number 12 today, it seems very clear that their new prime leader is going to put them on a mission to give them focus, to curb excess deviation, to give them purpose. That's going to mean taking out Krakoa. That's going to, and there's literally a scene where it's like, oh, who are all these deviants? That's going to be the Krakoans, okay? That's going to be mutant kind. This thing's not going to end with the Eternals having eradicated mutant kind. Like, that feels relatively unlikely. But could they really mess up Krakoan functions and facilities and relationships with the world? Yes. So I'm going to go with Resurrections being unveiled like easier than the 5 falling per se. But I got to think about it more because that is a good question and I do want to play I think, with maybe some predictions about what might actually be coming out of this, because there's a lot of potential. And again, like I do think Judgment Day is going to be good. And seriously, if you're even mildly hyped and you're going to be playing along with the X-Men crossovers in Judgment Day, like read Eternals. Like you're not going to get as much out. First off, it's a great comic. I love it and I recommend it. But like you are not going to get as much out of Judgment Day if you have not read the Gillan Rivage Eternals. I promise. I promise you, you will not enjoy the event as much. And you're going to feel mildly confused, probably. If you don't dig it, you don't dig it, right? But I really like it. But like, it's definitely going to help, I think, with understanding. And also, like, it's got a ton of Thanos in it. And if you're not into that, like, I'm sorry, we are just not on the same page. We are not even close to the same page. Love me, my guy Thanos. Okay, good questions. Keep getting more in here, and I'll get to as many as I can. All right. Immortal X-Men #2, writer Kieran Gillan, artist Lucas Wernick, colors David Curiel, letters by Clayton Coles. About in 2019 and a little bit in 2020, we had this really cool thing going in Marvel Comics where I could not decide between a 1A and a 1B favorite, best of Marvel, between Ewing's Immortal Hulk and Hickman's X-Men. 2019, this was the most prominent, right? Because you had House of X and Powers 10. As the X-Men series went on, it was a little easier. Immortal Hulk was better. But at the time, it's really cool to have like, hey, we've got two writers, peak of their powers, doing all time. These are going in the canon. These are going in the best of lists type runs on these different properties. We're kind of potentially in that territory. We have that potential here with Gillan and Ewing trading punches on X-Men Red and Immortal X-Men #2, right? And I like these books coming out the same week because it's basically like, which one of these great creators, which one of these excellent storytellers is going to write the better X-Men book today? And I think we're going to see on a month-to-month cadence, like they're going to trade blows. Like round one, I think went to Gillan. I thought Immortal X-Men #1 was so flipping good. And it actually made X-Men Red #1 somewhat less impressive to me, because even though I knew, like, cognitively it was a really good comic, I didn't like it as much as Immortal X-Men #1, right? This week I had the inverse experience. I think X-Men Red #2 is a better comic. Okay? I think it does a lot more. I think it's more effective. I think the dialogue's fantastic. The character moments are fantastic. That said, Immortal X-Men #2 is really good. It's still really flipping good. This one is the Hope Summers centric issue. So we actually have Gillan in his first two issues revisiting two of the characters that he's probably the most well known for his time writing X-Men stuff in the late 2000s and early 2010s, right? Because in first issue we had Sinister. Obviously, everything is Sinister, and his Uncanny X-Men run is like that's the turning point. That's the level up moment for that character. And then here with Hope Summers, Gillan wrote Generation Hope. Like, he's written Hope as a prime character, as a core character. We haven't seen Hope Summers get to do Cable stuff, like, at all, in this era. It's nice to see somebody return to the character who's like, yeah, she's not just this character who should be, like, hanging out with four pals and really busy doing, like, desk work all the time. She belongs on the Quiet Council. And not only that, she belongs in action. Thought it was really cool here how one thing I've been saying too that I really want to see from Immortal X-Men, it's been more teased than acted on, but you see Destiny and her visions not used in a passive way, right? It's not just like Destiny being like, oh, I anticipate, and I I guess I don't need to do my old Destiny, right? It's not like, I anticipate that there will be an incident here, right? She's less old now, right? This is Hot Destiny Summer. But she's like, hey, there's going to be a thing, and you should be there. Celine's going to be at this place with Kova Nakaba, and you should be there. Like, Destiny is driving action because she has this vision. She is making the thing happen even as she's predicting it. That's interesting to me, right? Destiny actually controlling the vision in some capacity. That thing doesn't happen unless she tells Hope Summers that. Like, it just doesn't happen. Hope hears it. She borrows Magic's powers. She drops through a teleporting disc, and she snipes Celine and ends the threat of this. What did Celine do? Celine made the Krakoan external gate a sentient kaiju, which, when attacked, threatened multiple dimensions, multiple realities, because it's a gate that offers access between dimensions, between Otherworld and Krakoa. Wild stuff. Selene did all of that because she got rejected for the council, in favor of Hope. So that's pretty wild. I gotta say, like, it continues to be incredible that Selene is escaping the pit. The pit still seems to be an option. So despite my theory last week that like maybe post Sabretooth, that won't even really be a thing, unless they're just like playing it up for appearances, that still seems to be around. That still seems to be an option. So Selene has no business escaping the pit. She had no business prior to this series because, again, she killed lots of humans. They were like really annoying guys in the pages of what was it, Captain America. But she killed lots of humans. That's the first law: kill no man. She killed hundreds of men, if whatever. Like, it was a big number. Somehow escaped the pit there. Now she's back. She's threatening all of Krakoa, so that definitely violates respect this sacred land. We have 3 laws. She's broken 2 of them, and somehow they're like, yeah, I don't want to mess with a trial. Ugh. It's so time consuming. So Selene's gonna skirt that again. I guess again, it's like whatever. She's a fun character. Keep her around. Fine. This issue is super action oriented. I think Lucas Wernick, David Curiel, they do a super nice job making it appealing. Mr. Sinister powering up as a very out in the open Chimera was interesting. Was a little surprising as a choice, right? Like, he's kind of been keeping his Chimera stuff under wraps. Like, he's been keeping it a bit of a secret, but here he's just like, nope, I'm going full. He looked a ton like Weapon H, the Department H character, in like a weirdly readable Greg Pak written book. Not weirdly, like, it's Greg Pak, so it's like, of course it's gonna be super readable, but it seemed like the dumbest idea to do like a Hulk Wolverine, and that series actually was okay. But anyway, that's basically what Sinister turned himself into, with like, he's got like a Cyclops blast out of his diamond, and he's got Wolverine claws, and he's just a big old Hulk. And he kind of plays the hero, even though that's not really his intention. So, fun Sinister moment as well. The Summers protocols were also extremely fun. That was a good gag by Gillan. I'm wondering, like, this book, Immortal X-Men, I think Gillan can find sort of a sweet spot between the Hickman X-Men and the conceptual sci-fi and the political bickering of the Quiet Council and Hellions, and the zaniness and the goofiness and just the grin, the impish grin on his face, of writing gags like the Summer Protocols, where of course he has a multi-volume written document about how to respond to kaiju. that was really fun stuff. I love that. It felt in character with Scott. That was really good. So I'm fully expecting to continue greatly enjoying this book. I think the approach of doing like, kind of a POV through each of the Quiet Council members as this book goes is really going to give it legs. Definitely we need to see what's up with Destiny. That's the biggest one. I think that's the next issue. She's repeating the John Cale lyrics again, right? You're a ghost. There's something going on here with her visions being all muddled. And at first it's kind of like, well, it's because of Selene's kaiju. But then by the end of it, it's like, well, maybe that stuff's happening anyway. I'm very curious what we're going to do with, this sort of like through the eras, through time, through immortal mutants' lives. How are all these visions and incidences going to overlap and connect? What does she mean? Why does she keep saying with Sinister, we need to work together, right? What is that stuff going to build to? I'm totally here for it. I'm very interested. And I definitely want to see all these things connect. So, yeah, it's going to continue to be a good book. But again, I think this week X-Men Red was the stronger of the two. And that's a really cool situation to be in, where we have these 2 powerhouse 1A, 1B books at the top of the line, where it's like, which one of these is going to be the best each week? Or best each month? We don't know. But I'm super excited to find out. So I'm seeing a question here. Since we're not going with Selene, who do you think will be the major magic user on the council? I think the council's full up, isn't it? It's not going to be Selene. It's not going to be Magic. Oh, no, they're still talking about it, aren't they? Because they're talking about Magic here, and they're like, she's a war captain. Also, like, as we find out in New Mutants, which we'll get to in a second, like, she's still the ruler of Limbo. Like, Magic is busy. It's rude to even ask if she'd be on the Quiet Council. But who then could it be? I mean, it can't be Richter, because he's not really a high enough profile. Plus, He's in Knights of X. Who else do we have who is into the magic side? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it super matters that you have somebody that understands that so much as for me, Celine was a cool pitch because she was the only one who captured, Apocalypse's longevity, right? And just sort of understanding of ways the world works for that long. I don't know. Like it's interesting how many more characters do we even have that kind of could potentially fill this role, who are even in consideration. I haven't given a ton of thought, but it doesn't feel like we have a heck of a lot of players out there who really would fit the bill effectively for another Quiet Council seat. I'm sure there's somebody I'm overlooking, but right now it's not easy to think of somebody come to mind. So if you got some ideas, definitely get them in here in the chat. I'll take a look. I'm seeing Wanda shouted out. That would be interesting. I don't think we're there yet, right, in terms of like the Great Pretenders reconciliation plan, but that one would actually fit really well, which would be cool. Yeah, Magic would be a good choice, but I don't. Well, I mean, so in New Mutants number 25, she's trying to hand over the reins of Limbo to Madeline Pryor. Okay, so we finally got Maddie resurrected. We decided that, like, yes, clones can have souls, and Maddie's resurrected as her own person, retains the underboob, and is now going to get the keys to Limbo via Magic, because Magic's like, I don't want this place anymore. I never did. And Vita Ayala, Rodriguez, and the team, like, they're doing cool work on this book. New Mutants looks so stinking good. Like, I can't get over it. You got colors here by Ruth Redmond. You got flashback art by Jan Duracima. You got letters by Travis Lanham. Like, New Mutants is the best looking X-Men book every time Rod's involved. I mean, it just is. I don't think there's really any debate about that. I like Kasara stuff a lot too. Maybe Kasara would be the rival, right? In consideration of like who's just crushing it the most, like far and away. But like, yeah, this book looks awesome, and it's setting the stage for a really interesting Magic and Limbo plot. I think the direction of trying to get Ileana separate from traumatic past at the hands of Belasco, Sim, the whole Limbo ordeal, trying to acknowledge that past of those 80s Claremont stories, but then also like give this character a new direction. That's great. That's good. I'm curious to see how it plays out. Bringing Madeline Pryor involved is a really interesting choice because, the last time she was connected to Limbo, and it's talked about here in this issue, she kidnapped a bunch of babies, turned them into a pentagram, tried to kill her own baby, which we now know is Nathan Summers, aka Cable, and just full out Inferno on Earth, right? 1989 Inferno event on like a straight up revenge mission against Scott Summers, which was earned, Mr. Sinister, which was also earned. Like those things were right. But you know what? Like actually, if you've seen Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, like that's Madeline Pryor. Like that's her whole deal, except instead of being about saving the kids, she's actually like, no, I will kill them to kill everyone else, which is, generally frowned upon. But yeah, no, super interesting choice. And again, like if you told me 3 years ago, like, oh yeah, New Mutants, it'll be an issue where it's Danny, Moonstar, Magic, Rain, and Madeline Pryor in Limbo, and it's going to be one of your favorite comics that week. Like that would have been, I would not have bought that, but in this era and the way the creative team's handling it, it totally works, and I'm into it. I dug it. Okay, so yes, could Magic come out of this and be free of the shackles to Limbo and then join the Quiet Council? Maybe, but I think the timing of that is a little dicey, right? I think that's going to take a little while, and then I think Gillan's going to need somebody faster than that. I think Gillan's going to need somebody in Immortal X-Men sooner. Wanda would be super interesting. That would probably be the most fun. But I don't see it. I think that's too fast, and I think they probably don't want to jump to that yet. Same question here. Have I seen Kieran Gillen's interview with the Popverse? It gives some interesting insight into Judgment Day. I haven't read it yet. The Popverse is a new website that just launched today, actually. It's sponsored by Read Pop, which, if you know them, they do a bunch of the Comic Cons around the country. You may or may not see some freelance writing there from yours truly here in the coming days. But no, I should check that out. I will read that. I'm curious too. Comic Book Herald, this issue got me wanting to read a lot about Exodus. Any reading recs? I mean, The thing about Exodus is like this is kind of the best Exodus era. Like Hickman and Gillan have taken the most interest in Exodus of almost anyone, with the exception, and this comes up a ton, of Mike Carey. Mike Carey has some pretty good X-Men stuff. It's after the Supernova stuff with Chris Pacello, which introduced the Children of the Vault, but before Messiah Complex, probably. I think it's actually when they're searching for Destiny's Diaries. I think there's a thing where like Exodus and some crew are searching for Destiny's Diaries. I mean, the lesson here is, as always, just like read the whole Mike Carey X-Men thing. But I think if you're looking for it, it's going to be, oh man, like 2006, 2007. It's going to be the series called X-Men, which ran from the year 2004 to 2007. And it's going to be after, whenever the Children of the Vault story arc ends. I'm going to guess X-Men number 95. Okay, that's fine. No, that can't be right. 195? Oh no, now I've put myself in a corner. Regardless, that's when that comes out. I like that arc. Otherwise, you've got 90s Exodus is when he becomes big, when he becomes the big acolyte of Magneto. It's not a good story, but there's a story about what is it? It's an invasion of Genosha. Blood Ties. It's an Avengers and X-Men crossover. That's got big Exodus moments. But yeah, I mean, otherwise you got to read a lot of 90s X-Men to get into Exodus. So if you're more into modern comics, the Mike Carey run and then the current stuff would be my top picks. I'm seeing here, Exodus was great in the Messiah War. There you go. Read the Messiah War. That's a good pick as well. Beast knows magic. Get out of town. No beast. No beasts on this Quiet Council. That would make for good comics. That would make for good drama. But no thank you. No thank you. Let's see. What else do we got? Magic, Wanda, and Selene are the only mutant-centric magic users. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, there's got to be some more than that. But I honestly, I don't know. Magic doesn't play that big a role in mutant stories. You know, it kind of, much like DC. Like, it's kind of, you got your DC Dark. On the Marvel side, you got your magic players. You got your Wanda, your Doctor Strange, your Doctor Doom, your Hellstrom. Brother Voodoo, right? Who else? Who else plays in that sphere? Those are the ones that are coming to mind. Wong, obviously, but like you don't get a ton more than that, and you definitely don't get it in the X-Men side of things, unless I'm just totally blanking on somebody. So I don't know. I don't know who that would be. Pixie, okay. Seen Pixie brought up. I do like Pixie. I don't anticipate seeing her on the Quiet Council. Ooh, is Wiccan considered a mutant? It's a stretch, but maybe. You know what? The whole status of the twins, of Billy and Tommy, Wanda's kids, that is so, like, still up in the air and unaddressed. And can they be on Krakoa? Should they be on Krakoa? Will they? Here's the thing. If you do that, you kind of got to do the whole thing bringing Wanda in. And I suspect they're going to stay away from that for some time. All right. So, all right. I got one big question here coming in. Get in some more if you got them. And we're going to hit that Hulk H2O right now. And just listen to the sounds of these swigs, please. Oh, that's the stuff. Again, you can find it at a faucet near you. It's brought to you by comicbookherald.com. I don't know if this gag's working, but I'm going to keep doing it because it reminds me to promote my website. So, listen, like we have so much good writing. We have so many good reading orders and guides that I put together over the year. You can find them at My Marvelous Year Club, this podcast I love, where we read through the whole Marvel Universe from its origins to today. We got a lot of good stuff on comicbookherald.com. If you like the YouTube channel, give it a look. I bet you'll find something you like, something useful. All right, let's see. What else do we got? Super Chat came in here. Probably a dumb question, but do you think Quicksilver has a future with the mutants? Similar to his sister. Everyone always forgets about Quicksilver. Nobody talks about him. Nobody wants to deal with poor Pietro. He's kind of like the twins for me, where if you're going to do the Pietro bit, you kind of got to do Wanda as well. I think eventually, yes, we'll see those characters tied to Krakoa. Because, like, here's the thing. Like, they're not doing other stuff, right? Like, they're not busy. Like, Quicksilver's not busy. Wanda is not busy. Neither of the twins are especially busy right now. Billy tends to have the most going on, but like there's not, much, there's not much in the Young Avengers and the Cosmic Sphere. So yeah, why not, right? Like bring them in. I don't know. I think there's like something big's got to happen where they need them, get them involved, get them to help, and then let them live there. I think we could see Quicksilver. I guess the thing for me is like, am I interested in that? And with Pietro, honestly, the answer is generally no. He's had some interesting moments, obviously, with like X Factor in the Peter David era, where he's kind of, an obnoxious counterbalance to some of the characters there. But for me, for my money, if I'm going to see any of those characters, I'm definitely most interested in Billy because he's got tremendous magical abilities, because he's got these connections to the King of Space, his husband Teddy, and then Wanda, obviously, right? Because she's just the most interesting. Sorry about you, Pietro and Tommy. Let's see. What happened to Luna Maximoff? Is she on the moon with her mama Crystal? Are the Inhumans even on the moon? I don't think so. I do not know what the deal is with the Inhumans. I don't know the Marvel editorial even knows what is the deal with the Inhumans. What did happen to Luna Maximoff? Magneto's granddaughter, once upon a time. I have no idea. No idea. That's a funny but actually very good question. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm seeing here's questions about the sword. So the end of New Mutants number 25 here, it ends with Ileana going to chops him up with her soul sword, and he blocks it with whatever sort of magical thing he developed at the beginning of this comic. It seemed like he was talking to a silhouetted figure. Every implication would be that was Belasco, but I don't know why you make that a secret. Like, that seems really obvious. So maybe it was somebody else. I guess maybe that's why you make it a secret, to make people like me think too hard about it. But she tries to take down Sim, and Sim blocks her with this new magic thing, and it shatters her soul sword, or at least that was the vibe I got. That's a big deal. The soul sword is what gives Ileana the power, gives her the right. What gives you the right? That gives her the right, the soul sword, to rule Limbo, and it seems to have been destroyed. She is immediately like scared. And we don't see Ileana Rasputin scared these days, right? Like she is tough as nails. So that is clearly something she was definitely not anticipating, and should have big implications now as Ileana, Danny, Rain, and Maddie try to escape Limbo. It should make for some good comics. I definitely expect that. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, like I thought the structuring of New Mutants, where you had these kind of current moments of what's going on in Limbo with these storybook type insertions of like Ileana's past. I thought that was all really smart, effective storytelling for this book. Again, if you kind of don't know Ileana's deal, I think I've talked about it in videos in the past, but like, you kind of have, it's not my favorite is the thing. Like, so the Chris Claremont written, I think it's called Ileana and Storm, because like they were like, we can't just, or Magic and Storm, right? But it's a Magic miniseries from like 1984. It's really essential. I mean, it gets called back to so much. There's an Uncanny X-Men issue which sets it up. It's like 162-ish range, but it's in that. And that can't be it. That's Brood stuff. But it's somewhere, maybe it's 168. It's Claremont written stuff. But anyway, like those issues are all the stuff with her and Belasco. I don't know. Maybe from context clues you got plenty. And you don't need to go back and read those, but I just feel like it's so heavily referential because it's like that's the origin, right? That's all we've ever gotten. And this is actually fleshing that out. And it's not a time period or a space in Ileana's life that is frequently explored or talked about. Generally it's just taken for granted. Like, yeah, she survived that and she's out now and she's got a cool sword, and sometimes she has hooves, right? But this is actually looking into like, wait, what did she do? What did she read? What did she learn? What was that life like? From new perspectives and new creators, and I'm here for it. It should be good. So those three comics, X-Men Red, Immortal X-Men, and New Mutants number 25, good stuff, good comics. There were also technically three, really just two other X-Men comics today. Like I mentioned, there's X-Force number 28, and there was Wolverine number 21. Wolverine number 21 continues the Wolvie Deadpool team-up comic. That is my preferred of the two. Definitely. I actually thought Wolverine number 20 was pretty good. It was funny in surprising ways because the Deadpool inclusion. This continues that, I thought, less effectively. But if you enjoyed that first issue, I suspect you'll want to keep reading it. Again, I've said this a few times, but Kubert, I think it's Andy, is doing awesome layout stuff with that book, with Wolverine. Like, that has been a great looking comic. So That piece of it is always fun. X-Force, I'm pretty checked out on for sure. The Perseverse stuff, kind of post X Lives, X Deaths. I'm just not invested in, and I'm not enjoying. Again, if you've dug this run to this point, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't still. I did really like the cover by Josh Cassara there with Quentin Quire and the pink Juggernaut armor. I think it was modeled after like a Liefeld cover even. I like the Omega Knot. That's cool, but yeah, otherwise not my favorite book. And then the other one we had today, which I have not read yet because the first issue was such a turnoff for me. I don't talk about my turnoffs a lot, but one of them is one of my favorite series of all time, X-Statix, when the creators return and do a first issue that is like really boring. And that's how I felt about the X-Cellent. It was a bummer, but I don't know, it's got Doctor Strange on the cover. Mark Allred art is always amazing to look at, so like maybe I'll check out issue 3, but I haven't yet. So if anybody out there is reading the X-Cellent, and I don't think it's going to be super important to anything that's going on in Krakoa, I think they're just going to do their thing. But if anybody's reading it and it's like, hey, you should check it out, it's actually good, I will listen to that. I don't know that I will do it, but I will hear you. Let's see, what else? All right, get in your questions. I'm going to do one more slug of water, and then I think we're going to wrap it. It says here, Lila Cheney and Manifold, are their powers the same? If so, who's Omega? Powers are very similar in terms of like the ability to teleport people vast distances. I think Manifolds are probably more complex in terms of what he can do with space and time. Neither of them, though, are Omega level mutants because they aren't on the chart. Which book is comparable to Hellions within Destiny of X? I was talking about Immortal X-Men. I'm saying that because Gillan has a similar impish cheekiness and sense of humor. It's not the same kind of book in that it's, Hellions was the Suicide Squad book, right? Immortal X-Men is still the Quiet Council book. It is the Succession book. It is the politics book. But I think if you're looking for that brand of humor, it's probably the closest you're going to get of anything in the X line right now. Okay, seeing some confirmation of my great opinions. That is always appreciated. All right, that's 3 drinks. If you had 3 drinks or more, congratulations. My pick tonight, I got Warriors over Mavs. Luka's so fun to watch, but I got the Warriors winning. I'm rooting for a Warriors Heat finals at this point. I'm very anti-Celtics. It was weird. I got to tell you, it was weird after the Bucks decimated my Bulls. Just blood. Like, here's the thing. I've probably talked about this already. We had 2 games where we looked amazing. We looked like we could hang with the Bucks. Middleton gets hurt. I'm talking with my family. I'm like, holy cow, I think we can beat the Bucks. And then they just ruined us. They just ruined us for 3 games. It was a weird thing to go through that and then turn around and have to root for the Bucks because I dislike the Celtics so much. But I was rooting hard for Giannis and co. To no avail. But yeah, I'm definitely rooting out hard for the Heat as well. Jimmy Buckets, at least, right? I got that Bulls connection on the Heat. So Heat Warriors, that's my pick. Who do I want to win? The Warriors have all their rings. Like, they're fun to watch, and I'm kind of rooting for them again just because I've always liked Steph and I like Steve Kerr. But I don't know. I don't know. I got to think about that one. Don't pressure me. Even though nobody asked that question, I asked it of myself. Okay. Who's the MVP X character of the month? I could finish it on that one. Let's see. MVP X character of the month is going to go. The temptation here is definitely to give it to Mr. Sinister for that Department H glow up. But you know who I'm going to give it to? I'm going to give it to Manifold. I'm going to give it to Manifold for seeing through Abby Brand's schemes, for standing up to her, for threatening to go back to the Avengers, and for not joining X-Men Red. That was a cool moment. That was great. Storm had bigger moments, had flashier moments. I dug that Manifold moment a lot. Congratulations, Manifold, for the X Character of the Month award. All right, let's go Heat. Let's go Warriors. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'll be back next week talking X-Men comics. Thanks for joining, and enjoy the comics.